Welcome to the Market Wrap, number 139. Stuart Williamson here at the helm. I whiz around the world, looking at the UK residential market, getting information from different sources, giving it out to you. This week, Bank of England's latest rate change, increase. What does it mean for house prices? Is it better for flats, for houses? Are we better off living in the country or on the beach? What's it all about? So, the markets are saying rate cuts should start to occur before the end of 2023, the end of this year. Based on the Bank of England last week increasing interest rates by 0.5% to 4%. The picture they're outlining for short and long term is very different. Inflation has likely peaked across many advanced economies, including the UK, according to the MPC. In fact, it's likely to fall below the bank's target 2% target rate at the end of 2024. Markets are now pricing in one more quarter point hike later in 2023, but then it'll start to fall. The recession predicted will now be shorter than expected, more like flatlining, and on the back of that, the FTSE hit a 2-year high. 5-year swaps dropped to the lowest level since August, which is good news for mortgages. However, the bank took a bleak view of the UK's longer-term prospects. GDP isn't expected to reach pre-coronavirus levels until 2026. As expected, the outlook is more in line with the IMF's published earlier this week due to declining participation in the labour market, the impact of high interest rates on mortgages, and the UK's higher dependency on gas. So that's basically less people are in the workforce than there were before. I mean, apparently it's people like myself just not bothering, they're giving up, going home, they like to work from home, they're going to stay there. But it's worth studying the language the Bank of England used. Okay, back in the Soviet era, analysts would spend hours trying to read between the lines of speeches and comments that came out of the Kremlin. Was there a hint buried in this or that paragraph about nuclear policy and the path of the Cold War? Today, economists do very much the same thing with the noises coming from central banks. The men and women who run monetary policy and decide our interest rates tend to talk in convoluted sentences. But if you spend enough time analysing the words and this modern form of Kremlinology, it can pay dividends. The announcements on Friday, it was one of those days, because you read between the lines of the latest pronouncements from the Bank of England, it's clear that we are reaching, or might already have reached, the peak for UK interest rates. Alongside its interest rate decision, the bank introduced some subtle shifts in its language. Words like forcefully have been removed from part of the minutes talking about the future rate increases. Future tenses have been replaced by conditional tenses. So it's good news for mortgage rates and it's good news for the UK house market. Now, on another topic, clients often ask me about regional house prices, the types of houses to buy and where is best to buy. So let's look at some regional variations that have come out this week. Nationwide compared average house prices between October and December to the same period in 2021. And they worked out that East Anglia was the strongest performing region in England, with average prices increasing by 6.6% compared to the same 3 months in 2021. Scotland overall was the weakest performing region, with house price growth of 3.3%, and Wales saw a significant slowdown in growth, slowing to 4.5% from 12.1% in the previous 3 months. Northern Ireland, an increase of 5.5%, but much weaker than the 12.1% recorded in the previous year. House price growth was second slowest in London, but house prices are still the highest in the UK at 528 in London, double the UK average. How do prices different for different types of property? I mean, the pandemic caused huge shifts in housing preferences, and mortgage lenders have continued to see differences in price trends between property types. Since the onset of the pandemic, prices of detached family homes are growing much faster than flats so far. Many workers are continuing to work from home a few days a week, so there's still a demand for larger properties with space for a home office. While this hybrid model for working continues, so will a trend for larger properties. Figures from the Nationwide Building Society show that the average price of a detached property increased by 26%, or nearly £78,000 in cash terms, between 2020 and 2022. If you look at 22, detached properties increased by 5.9% alone. Flats increased by 13.4% over that whole period, and over the last year only by 2.1%. So a big imbalance. Figures from the ONS show a slightly different trend, with semi-detached and terraced houses rising in price most in the year to October 2023, with the average price of detached houses reaching 468,000, 12% up, semi-detached houses 287,000, 14% up, terrace houses 14% up as well. Flats were only up 8.6%. However, Zoopla this week announced that flats in city centre locations were increasing at twice that of houses, and that's because of the time lag of ONS versus Zoopla. Zoopla's on the ball, ONS isn't. What about rural locations? With working from home more likely to be a permanent part of many people's lives, demand for properties outside cities has jumped. Lockdowns highlighted the value of greenery and space, triggering a surge of interest in properties in the rural and coastal areas, according to the ONS. Again, very old data the ONS gives us. House prices in some areas have risen at 3 times the national rate. These include places like Conwy in North Wales, North Devon and Richmond in the Yorkshire Dales. Estate agents report significant interest in rural and remote properties in Scotland. With that said, at APW we are seeing a return to cities and commuter belts, which has driven up the average price of properties in these areas. Zoopla also reports it. So go onto the Zoopla website, download the latest report and have a look at what's going on in today's terms, because they are reporting what happened last month. The ONS is reporting what happened in the last 6 months. 15 minutes to the beach. The government this week published its environmental improvement plan with a pledge to ensure every household will be given a 15-minute walk to green space or water, so not quite the beach. These measures will include commitments to restore at least 500,000 hectares, 1.2 million acres of wildlife habitat and 400 miles of river. That will include 25 new or expanded national nature reserves and 3,000 hectares of new woodland along England's rivers. It sounds like a very bold plan, and if it does go ahead, it would need the addition of land the size of Wales somewhere in the UK by 2050. Where is the land going to come from? Again, there's no clearness on this. Perhaps it's the government again being too big on ideas and short on details. So there we go. That's Market Wrap for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a bit about rates. It's interesting to see that rates are potentially coming down this year, so all this hubris about the end of the world is nigh is not the case. Okay, the economy is going through a bit of a slack phase, but it doesn't mean it's not a good buying opportunity. We believe it still is if you're buying in places like city centres where 1-bed studio and 1-bed flats are in shortage. Do like, subscribe, any comments you want feel free, and fill in the form below if you wish to get a bit more information about us. Cheers, cheerio.